Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to 321 No Kiddin. Bobby the Awesome here. I'm happy to announce that I have Justin on the show with me today. And we have an amazing conversation about addiction and life. And he was just phenomenal, dropped so much value here that I can't wait for you to hear what he has to say. So without any further ado, here's my friend Justin.
Welcome, Justin Brien, to 321 No Kiddin podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm excited because you have a whole lot of topics and things that are relative to my audience that we're going to chat about today. So if you can kick us off, maybe tell us a little about yourself and where you're from.
Well, I'm actually from Canada, little town of 18,000 people called Salmon Arm in British Columbia. For those of you that don't really know Canada, it's about 5 hours to Vancouver on the Pacific coast, maybe 5 hours to Calgary, if you know that. But we're a nice little hub to both cities. We're right on the lake, so we have a Shuswap Lake, which is very beautiful. It's large. It's just a nice little community to raise the sun in. But my story stems from a lifetime riddled with depression that I didn't really know that I had. Also, I battled with addiction to alcohol for better parts of 16 years almost. And then finally, cocaine got introduced when I was 24. But I battled that as well for the next 10 years of my life until I was about 34 years old.
Wow. Wow. The depression seems to be a common theme across addiction. I think it comes in different levels, and it doesn't really matter what addiction it is. It just seems to be there. And can you tell us a little bit about your journey with the alcohol, with the cocaine, what your breaking point was? Kind of take us through how your story unfolded.
Yeah, well, you know what? I didn't actually really even start drinking until I was about 19 years old. I think I drank maybe 3 or 4, maybe 5 times up until that age. But once I started drinking and I realized who it made me be, it made me become more confident, more outgoing. I felt invincible. I got this automatic, oh, people like me. People think I'm funny. I need this. It literally became a friend of mine to where I brought it with me everywhere. Like for me, I actually had an algorithm of drinking. So I would drink this much before I went out. I would drink this much at the bar so I could talk to this girl. I'd drink this much so I could dance. Like it wasn't down to a science or a tea or anything, but I would drink to feel confident so I could do things. But it really kind of stemmed from like growing up. I hit puberty late. So I hit puberty in grade 11. I was smart in school. I got girls, but that didn't really matter to me. I was kind of behind all the guys. Like I wasn't as big, I wasn't as strong. And I just wanted to be part of the guys kind of thing. But all my friends were better at athletics than me. Like I wasn't bad by any means, but they were just all better than me. And I really just wanted to be part of the crew. And finally it's when I first started touching alcohol that I got that false confidence, false feeling of just invincibility, that I just continued to do it. And I knew from a very young age that why I drank, what it did for me. I knew I probably shouldn't, but I never thought to the fact that what it was doing and how it affected my life was a problem. Like I didn't see it as a problem. I was like, okay, well, I need this for now, but whatever, it's okay. Like I never really had that role model to teach me that drinking was bad or anything. But like I was always against drug use until I was 24. I smoked marijuana when I was 21, but I didn't really like it. It gave me the munchies and it gave me anxiety too. So I didn't really smoke it. But after a while, I started to smoke it every now and then, and I would sit on the couch and talk politics with my buddies, watch infomercials, and then eat what was ever in the fridge. But then at one point at 24 years old, I touched cocaine. And instantly, I don't even remember the night. I got pretty drunk. And the next day, my buddy's like, man, you were hilarious last night. And just by him telling me that I was funny, it was a switch. And I was like, oh, I need this. Man, for people. And it's funny because people already liked me. I didn't like myself. So that's where I didn't realize what depression really meant. Like I never even knew those words really back then. And I don't think really a lot of people knew what those words meant. Like for me, I remember at 24 having a conversation with my friend about depression, thinking that, okay, depression is just an excuse. It's for the weak. Man up, go to work, go do your job. Stop making excuses for yourself. So I didn't really realize that I was drinking because I was depressed. I knew I was drinking for the wrong reasons, but I didn't really know that it was because I was sad and I was missing out on something.
Yeah, that's a good point. I noticed I still, even though I'm in this arena where I talk to a lot of addicts, I've been exposed to people who've been depressed, I think there's still so much more to learn. What causes it, how to handle it. I think it's different for every person.
Mm-hmm.
And as you're talking about your two drug of choices and going through my head, it's like, okay, well, alcohol is another depressant, but then cocaine is not. It's the other end of the spectrum. So I'm trying to wrap my head around what that would look like. It would seem like it would just be chaos.
Oh, it was chaos. You know what? People started like, I would get blackout drunk all the time, like all the time at 24 years old. And the cocaine would kind of bring you back, but the cocaine would make you more talkative or but for me, being ADHD, so I was diagnosed with clinical depression, social and general anxiety, ADHD at 30, actually. And I sustained 7 concussions throughout life. Then those are just ones that were documented through junior hockey, through car accidents, wrestling. I got sucker punched. I had post-concussive syndrome. And I didn't really take an effect that with depression, head injuries, cocaine use, and alcohol abuse, it really took a toll on my brain. And really took a toll for the worse. So it actually amplified the depression. And where I thought alcohol was helping me, I thought it was a friend. Like if I had it beside me, I'm like, oh man, I felt this comfort level come over me. To where it actually got to the point where if I just had alcohol and like cocaine with me, just beside me, and I was alone, I was way more comfortable than being out with people. Because alcohol doesn't judge you, cocaine doesn't judge you. It makes you feel good. But I ended up seeing a counselor, addiction counselor, and she's like, do you like feeling hungover? I'm like, well, no, but she's like, what about blacking out? I'm like, well, honestly, those days that I black out, at least I'm not sad. I don't know what I feel.
Wow. Sorry, I totally wouldn't have made that connection. That's a very profound thing for someone to figure out, I think.
Mm-hmm. No, so, she didn't really get it either.
Well,
so at least I wasn't sad.
Yeah.
At least I wasn't suicidal.
Yeah, I mean, they talk about self-medicating, and I can really relate to what you're saying about how it changes your personality and how you show up in the world. But I wouldn't have drawn that line about, I mean, I guess numbing sadness, but I don't know, just the way you just stated it was totally mind-blowing to me.
So when I was 24 years old, I was living in Vancouver, and I was walking down the Canby Street Bridge, and I looked up, and I'm like, holy cow, I'm an alcoholic. And I'm like, no, I'm too smart for that. I can't be an alcoholic. No way. There's no way I'm an alcoholic. So I just kept doing on what I started doing. And by 28, I kept losing jobs. And I came home, moved back to Salmon Arm, and I started seeing a counselor. And I've been to 45 addiction appointments, or almost 50. I've been to rehab twice, 77 days away from my family. I've been to over 100 doctor's appointments, 10 psychologists, 10 psychiatrists, 8 different meds on trying to get better. But I came to the realization that I really needed help. And that's where I came up with the 3 A's, the accept, or it's admit it, accept that you have it, admit it, and then you ask for help. And I asked for help, but I still couldn't quit. I wasn't making my appointments, and I couldn't figure out why. Why do I want to drink? Why do I want to do this? And at 28, I became suicidal. But for pretty much the last 6 years of my life, up until January 4th, 2019, I was suicidal every single day. I was thinking of ways I could do it. I ended up in the hospital 3 times with IVs hooked up to me because I had alcohol poisoning, because I just wanted to let go. There's days I was just laying in my bed. I was scared. I was scared of who I was, but it's not like I wanted to die. It's just like I didn't want to hurt anymore. I tell how people ask me, like, what do you mean? Like, it's just a feeling. But for me, it was like, I explained to people, it's like, imagine watching a loved one choke and you're trying to grab at it, but you can't get it. So you just see them choke and choke. And that's kind of what I felt like. And it got to the point where one day I woke up and I had a knife in my bed and there was blood on the stains of blood on the sheets, and my wrists were cut. And I was like, holy cow. And I actually had to wear makeup on my wrists to work, and I wore wristbands so people couldn't even tell. And then nobody knew. I didn't tell anybody. It got to the point where I actually became an organ donor. I got milk thistle for my liver and kidney flush for my kidneys, and I was preparing myself. I was preparing myself to end it, but I wanted to be able to donate my body to someone that needed it.
You said you woke up to the knife in the blood. You don't remember doing that?
No. I remember coming home, but vaguely.
And you're married, have your family, all of that at this time?
Well, right now I do. So it got to the point where, so me and my girlfriend, we were actually broken up at the time, but we always stayed in touch. But I was a mess. I was drinking, I was up and down, emotional. I was a roller coaster to be with. And I just wanted to be alone. But we ended up hooking up on my birthday, and she ended up getting pregnant. So we tried to get back together. And that was the first time I went to rehab. But when I got out of rehab, I was sober for 3 months, but I went to rehab for the wrong reasons. I went to get out of town. I went and spent 42 days in a house with 60 other guys, working out, eating 6 times a day, gained like 10 pounds. But I wasn't there. I wasn't there mentally. I was just there. I mean, it sucked. I hated it, every second of it. But when I got out, I'm like, I told my uncle who picked me up, I'm like, well, you know what? I'm not quitting drinking forever. I'm like, I'm just taking a break just to make sure I'm okay. And basically, a month out of being sober, I started drinking again. It's okay. I got this. And then finally, 6 months after my kid was born, I wasn't drinking lots, but when I drank, I'd get blackout. And it'd be every other weekend or sometimes every weekend, not during the week, but then I'd miss work because I'd be so sick that I couldn't keep water down. Finally, she left. She's like, I can't do this. So she left, and then I kept on my downward spiral. I'd miss work. I was lucky enough to have a job at a mill where they're like, listen, like, we love you here. You're a hard worker, but you need to get help. And then I went on leave the first time myself, and again, and then finally they're just like, listen, go get some help. And that's the second time I went to rehab. But just before that, I got to the point where I had my 3-year-old son, and I was starting to crumble. I was starting to feel awful. So I took him to the store. We walked to the store. I got him a bag of candy, and I think maybe a bag of chips or something. We walked back. When we got there, I put him down in front of the TV. I turned on a movie, and I gave him the bag of candy. And I just stood there behind him, and I broke down. I started crying, and I was staring at the back of his head, and I was thinking, I'm like, man, am I ever going to see him score his first goal in hockey? Am I going to make it to teach him how to ride a bike? Will I be there to see him graduate or even walk down the aisle? Like, I was at that point where I couldn't see myself in his life in the future. And it got so bad that I started thinking, I'm like, you know what? Maybe he's better off without me. When you get that deep suicidal, like, you start to think the bad thoughts are probably better off, if you know what I mean. Like, if I leave, people can go on and be healthier without me. Like, my son can have a healthy, stable father, a guy that's in his life every day, and is going to be there. He's going to feed them. He's going to wake up with them. He's not going to be a drunk. But I started getting those thoughts, and then it started spiraling even more. But those thoughts they're just constantly in my head. Just if I left him, he would be better off.
Wow, it's so backwards. I thought where you were going with that was, I thought that's what you were going to tell me was the turning point, was thinking about all these moments that you potentially would miss if you didn't straighten out then. Mm-hmm. But you're saying it got worse. That's just. Ugh.
Yeah, it started getting worse. But the thing is that I started listening to motivational speaking probably 5 years ago. I'm like, I want to do that. And it always stuck with me when a bunch of guys started talking about your why and the power of why. And so finally I went to rehab again. And I went with the purpose of putting my drinking aside. I'm like, you know what? Put that aside. I know I can stop, but so what I like to tell people is you don't choose addiction. However, you choose to stay in addiction. The hardest thing about addiction is not quitting, but living in sobriety. So I found that quitting addiction part, stop drinking, is fine, but it was everything without the drinking. It was living sober, dealing with people sober, dealing with experiences sober, trying to do everything sober. Like I even got to the point where I was drinking to play hockey, like a game I love. I needed to drink to feel confident on the ice. So I went to rehab with, you know what? Why do I drink? Okay, I'm depressed. So why am I depressed? Well, because I feel this, I feel that, I feel this. I'm not where I want to be, and I'm using alcohol for this. So what do I need to do to get better? And honestly, being in rehab, I think what they teach there, like with gratitude, mindfulness, guilt, shame, anger, forgiveness, acceptance. Acceptance is a huge one. You know what? And then I know every addict deals with guilt and shame. I don't know if I've ever met an addict that doesn't feel guilty or shameful because they know what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
And it's hard. You just want them to understand what you're feeling, but you don't want them to feel it, but you want them to understand.
Right.
But you don't want them to feel it. Does that make sense? I don't know. So I went with that in mind, like why? And so I went to rehab. I felt great coming out. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to be a speaker. Like I said, a speech there, and they loved it. And I really had everything going. I got out. I got a new job. I was a car salesman. 3 months in, I'm losing it. I can't keep my head straight. I'm without the drinking. My social interactions were nothing. I self-isolated all the time. I was trying to learn, but I was having a hard. Like in high school, I got good grades and I didn't have to study. Now I'm having a hard time retaining information because I just came out of 16 years of addiction, riddled with head injuries, really confused, hating life, depressed. So I was having a hard time retaining information. Finally, I remember one time I just gave my son to my mom and I just started drinking. I started drinking again. I went back on that cycle. However, the one thing I am proud of in my life is that the 3 years that me and my girlfriend were broken up, I only drank 3 times when I had my kid, myself, and not one of them I got drunk.
Gotcha.
Except for that time I handed him to my mom, said, can you watch him? But I never got drunk with him alone. But then that hit. Pardon?
He was motivating you on some level.
So this is what brings me to how I started kind of recovering. I started thinking of the why again. So like how I questioned it. And then I'm like, okay, what is my why? I really started thinking, okay, what is my why? Then I started thinking of my son. And I was like, you know what? Instead of thinking of him being better off without me, I started thinking of it as, you know what? I am a good person. What would he miss out if I wasn't here? I started thinking, I'm like, what if he was at school and some kid walked up to him and it's like, your dad doesn't even love you. He left you. That's how nobody loves you. And I started thinking of it being put in that situation because of a choice I made. And you know what? I know not everybody, they're gonna be able to choose that. And it's hard. I am one of the lucky ones that got out of that patch. Right? Because there's so many people that are still stuck there. But I started thinking of that, and I'm like, you know what? I got to do something about this. So on January 4th, 2019, after a night of drinking, I was like, I can't do this anymore. So I got my mom. I'm like, listen, you need to take me to the hospital. So she took me to the hospital. She had no idea what was going on. We got into a room. I said, I need to see a counselor. And with my mom in front of me, my dad to the left, and a counselor to the right. I finally admitted, I'm like, I have a plan. And that plan is to end it. And they're just holy. Like I'm one of those guys that could wear a mask and you couldn't tell. I mean, you could kind of tell sometimes if I talked about it. But one time I had a friend come up to me at the gym and she's like, why don't you be a personal trainer? And I'm like, no, I'm actually going to school to be a coach and a speaker. She's like, oh, really? How come? And then I told her what happened. She's like, holy cow. She's like, I graduated with you and I had no idea. Nobody had a clue.
Yeah.
Because I could put that mask on, and you know what? I forget how Robin Williams said it, but he's like, usually the saddest people like to make people the happiest because they know what it's like to feel sad, and they don't want them to feel that. So I would always try to make other people happy or be the one for them to lean on and talk to. But it was January 4th, 2019, where I said, you know what? It's time to change. This little man needs me. I need me. I found my why. And I know a lot of people say you have to do it for you, but you know what? From being in rehab twice, people reaching out to me, not a lot of people can do it for themselves. They can't. So you find out who you can do it for. It was for my son. But what they don't realize, it always comes back to you. Me getting better for him is getting better for me.
Right.
I get to see, by him getting to see me more means I get to see him more. So 6 months after I got out of rehab, me and my girlfriend got back together, and I mean, and now I took a couple life coaching courses, a couple motivational speaking courses, a course with badass Bobby over here.
I don't know where you got that from.
The head shakes you give Eric.
Yeah.
But you know what? The rest kind of just. I've spoken in front of about 400 people about mental health and addiction in 3 different schools, 2 different businesses. Actually, I went back and I got the opportunity to speak at the mill I used to work at, to where a lot of them, some of them knew, but they didn't know the severity of it, of how deep I was. And they thought I was just a partier, but I wasn't.
When you say mill, just to give clarification, you're in
Plywood
Canada.
plant.
A paper
Plywood plant.
Plywood, okay.
Yeah. What else do we produce?
Well, wood and plywood, paper. I get it.
Yeah.
Same thing. But you gotta remember, 47 countries can hear you, so they might not know what a mill is.
Sure.
Canadian slang. Just like they might not understand why a Canadian would quit drinking. You know, like it's an association.
Yeah, it's true.
So that's awesome. So you're speaking and coaching.
Yeah.
And as you said, we went to Eric's class together, which was amazing, actually, for 10 or 12 strangers to come together as tight as we all became, and so many commonalities amongst us, which was kind of beautiful too. I think that we have a group of people that'll stay connected probably for life and support each other and champion each other. So tell us about what your future looks like and what you're working on now, and what you got out of, maybe even what you got out of class and how it's translating into your life.
Well, now I have 3 clients enrolled in my Stronger You project, which is a 12-week personal development program, which is technically 14. So we do a week 0, I call it, where you get we go over expectations of each other and what's this going to be like. And then I assign the first week of homework. Then we have 12 weeks of homework and one-on-ones and additional support and 12 different modules on self-limiting beliefs, confidence, mindset, vision boarding is a big one, non-negotiables, your drivers, all that kind of stuff. Roadblocks is a big one as well. Acceptance and forgiveness, I decided to put that one in there. It's just because, you know, a lot of people I talk to, they all need to accept something. And what they don't realize is that in acceptance and forgiveness. So if somebody does something bad to you, you have to accept it because it happened. and you have to forgive them. However, acceptance and forgiveness is for you. It's not for them. You don't even have to tell them. We went over this little thing in rehab where we just sat there, their eyes closed, and our counselor walked around the room and he talked about, think of that person or situation you need to accept. And he accepted it. And then he's like, you don't have to like it, but it happened, right? And in the coaching course I did, we go over acceptance as well. But then he's like, now you have to forgive them. You don't have to tell them you forgive them, but in your mind, picture yourself walking up to them and saying, I forgive you. What you did was whatever you feel, is like disrespectful or it hurt me or whatever, but you can forgive them. Or if it's something else, like if it's how somebody hurt you, you can write them a forgiveness letter saying, this is how you hurt me, but I forgive you for that. So I decided to put that one in there. It's a big one because a lot of people I talk to, they need to forgive someone or accept circumstances. Like for me, I still have situations that I'm working on. I mean, I'm not perfect. I'm not coming out of this thing. I don't need personal development. I mean, I'm pretty much going to work on personal development my whole life because you got to go there, got to grow there to go there, go there to grow there, whatever it is.
Oh, I've never heard that one. I like it though.
Whatever, you can use it both ways. Go there to grow there, grow there to go there. But yeah, I put that one in there. It's complete now. So I have all, and then I assign one more week, and then you get the week 14, I guess is what it is, to see how everything went, decompress, and they can see if they still want to work with me or if, you know what, they're happy, they're fulfilled, they're motivated to keep crushing life.
So is it strictly addicts that come in your program, or is it for everyone?
No. You know what, he doesn't struggle with drinking. He wants to get his drinking down, but he doesn't struggle with it. It's just more or less people that want to be happier in life. They want to find their their purpose and their passion. There's a new word for you. They want to find their pappin. They're perpin.
We're growing and going to pappin.
Yeah, we're going and growing to pappin. The perpin. No, they want to, you know what, the biggest thing is an accountability partner, right? It's one thing they need. It's like, so they have to, I give them an accountability sheet that they have to fill in every week to see what they've done, to see where they've been, see what they want to talk about, and see if they completed that task. They have to hand in their homework on a certain time, right? So it holds them accountable, but it asks them the tough questions that they don't think about, that they don't want to answer. So it's holding them accountable, it's looking at what's underneath that rock, getting them clarity and direction on where they want to move in their life. And it's you know what, you don't have to be an addict to be unhappy. Right.
Well, that's where my brain just went. I've talked about, and I have it downloaded and I haven't read it yet, but the book, We Are the Lucky Ones, which I guess is the story essentially, and I heard this third hand, is that as addicts, we're lucky because we get exposure to all those things you mentioned: forgiveness, acceptance, how to deal with guilt, shame, all those life skills, gratitude, meditation. Like, why are they not just teaching that stuff in school? Save the whole world a lot of trouble.
Exactly how I feel. And it's nice because last year, for the school year, I actually got to volunteer at a boys club and a girls club for kids who were struggling a bit. And it's cool because as a speaker, I get to speak on what I want. I get to speak on what, the thing is, I'm not going to say, okay, this is going to change your life. I'm going to say, hey, this is what helped me change my life. This is how you can implement it. Choose to implement it, choose not to implement it. It's up to you. But the thing is that I like to give them options, right? Just like in rehab or being an addict, you got SMART recovery, you got AA, NA, rehab, 12-step program. There's all that. And so I like to pick and choose and then give people options, and they can choose what works best for them, right? So I really do think they should teach some of that, because that's where I've learned a lot of what I've learned. And honestly, like if you're struggling, I found that reaching out and finding people like you who struggle with the same things you struggle with, it's build a friendship around that, right? That somebody who wants to be there or who can talk to you. I also like I built a team around me of psychiatrists, doctors, psychologists. Like if you're struggling, you do whatever you have to do to get better. Like you don't stop. It's gonna be tiring, but also I know there's not a lot of people like me that have their why right now. So you got to find it. But if you're someone who's listening to this and you're not struggling, reach out to somebody who may be struggling. Reach out to somebody that you haven't talked to in a long time. Like today or this month is Suicide Awareness Month, right? And on September 10th is Worldwide Suicide Prevention Day. So I'm planning on releasing a video on that day. It's going to be like a drama kind of what I went through into an introduction of suicide prevention and stuff like that. And but reach out to people you haven't talked to, because you never know, lending an ear could save someone's life.
Yeah. You said so many things that I am so aligned with. Having when you're the speaker, you get to say what's important to you. Like, hello, that's why I have a podcast. I don't have to do what anybody tells me to do. I get to say my opinion. And then you went into all the different forms of recovery. And I love that. Like I just learned about recovery Dharma. We did a couple weeks about recovery Dharma on my evening episodes. And then I found a recovery Dharma meeting to go to. I haven't dabbled in smart recovery yet, but all these things, I think the more I learn and the more I try to practice, I'm becoming a better human being. But then I can also say, here world, here are your options. And I think in the background to all these options that there's more of the Justins and the Bobbies of the world. There's this population like emerging that have that same belief that it is as simple as finding your why, having gratitude, living with purpose, taking care of ourselves. You said something that referred to boundaries in your class. I don't remember the word you used, but essentially protecting ourselves from the people, like knowing when to say no. What was the word? What was the word you used?
I don't know.
It was one of your modules, but I took it
Acceptance and forgiveness, roadblocks, guilt and shame, self-limiting beliefs, non-negotiables, your big drivers.
Non-negotiables. That's non-negotiables. What I heard with non-negotiables was boundaries.
Okay.
That's
so yeah. So that's a good one. It's your non-negotiable list. It's called your non-negotiable list. The promise to yourself. So this is a list that I get people to do, that they write down their non-negotiables, like something you want to complete or something how you want to live. And if you break that, you break that. But by keeping those non-negotiables that you make, keeping the promise to yourself, you actually start to build credibility with yourself, which then in turn you start to build confidence with yourself. So all my modules are actually put in a way that they're all kind of linked. Everything's linked, but they're separate, but they'll build into each other.
Yeah, 100%.
But the non-negotiable list is a big one, because like how many times you say, I'm going to start Monday. I'm going to start Monday. And then you don't start Monday. And you're like, I find myself, I'm like, man, because I still struggle with sugar every now and then. Like it's that quick fix. I want to eat it because I can eat it. But you quit drinking and you have that sugar craving. It's late at night. I get it. It's super late, like 10, 11. I want sugar. And or I can fall asleep for an hour and wake up at 1 and I'm like craving sugar. But it's something that I'm like, okay, I gotta start Monday. No, you know what? You start now, you stick by it. It's gonna be hard, but give yourself some grace, right? So I got them to fill in on a negotiable list, and is it daily? Is that one weekly? Is that okay? I want to read. Okay, is it daily, or weekly, bi-weekly, or how many pages do you want to read, or how many times do you want to go to the gym? Stuff like that, where it doesn't have to be a daily non-negotiable list. It can be once a year. Okay, you know what? I have to go travel for a week by myself, but make it a non-negotiable. So you go. It's about setting deadlines and adhering to those deadlines.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you for sharing a little bit more about your perspective on it. Like I said, I heard boundaries, and maybe it's because that's something closer to me, but it's the same
No,
concept. You promise
yeah.
yourself something. So say you promise you're going to not put yourself in stressful situations because you're protecting your sobriety or whatever. And I'm saying this and trying to tie your message in, because this is stuff we talk about all the time on the show, is so if I'm protecting myself and I'm not going to be around toxic people because it makes me upset, stressed, tired, angry, wants to use, want to gamble, want to drink, all those things, then it's a non-negotiable to have that person in your life or to deal with them in such and such a way. And all that stuff takes practice, the inside work and the outside work that you're talking about.
Yeah, well, the thing is that healthy boundaries are huge, and they're key to having a happier life. Like sometimes I said this to a client, and like saying no to someone else is like saying yes to yourself, because I'm one of those guys that I'm trying to be more diligent on this because I want to take on the world. Yeah, I'll help you with that. I'll help you with that. I'll be there. I'll be here. Like, you know what? You don't have to save the world. I mean, if you really feel that you need to help them, then do it. But also don't overwork yourself, and don't be afraid to say no, because sometimes people come to you because you say yes.
Right. Is there anything that I'm forgetting that we wanted to chat about?
No, not really. Well, if you're struggling, I just want to say, speak out, speak up, and speak often. And if you can't find someone to listen, you keep talking until somebody eventually will. Because you know what? Yeah, I think everyone's purpose in life is to be happy, first off. And I mean, if you're struggling with an addiction, the number one most important thing in your life right now is for you to get healthy. I know, because without a healthy you, can you really be healthy for others? Like my son and my girlfriend now, because we're back together, they're the most important things in my life right now. But without a healthy Justin, I mean, can I really be the father, husband that I should be, I can be?
Right.
So when you realize that right now, my sobriety or whatever you're struggling with is number one, it's going to be a tough battle, because it is your recovery. And, you know, people put off self-care, but self-care is the best care.
Absolutely.
So make some time it up, time block it. Make some time to, you know what, to take care of yourself. Like I started journaling. I don't journal anymore really, but I do content now. So, but I journal. I did gratitude journals. Like I journal my feelings, and then it's kind of cool because you get to see over time your growth actually on how dark your journal can be, to progressively over time. Okay, it's getting better. Oh, there's a slip. Okay, it's getting better. Oh, there's a slip. But then you're doing how many steps forward, one step back, and it's gradual growth. We're not looking to go from 1 to a 9 happiness, right? Yeah, you want to go from 1 to a 2, and then 2 to a 3, and then maybe 3 to a 5. But it was doing mindfulness, just stopping yourself in the moment and being like, wow, you know what? That tree's really nice, or I'm just really happy to be here. What else? You know what? Podcasts really helped me. It was listening to vulnerable men, because I always had that man up idea in your head, and listening to, like, I'm 6'3", 230, muscles, works out guy, and nobody ever would have guessed it. But I was listening to other guys like me saying, hey, you know what? Hey, it's like Lewis Howes, The Mask of Masculinity. It's like, it's okay to be vulnerable, man. But or Pedro Sculian, who says, you gotta man up by taking responsibility for your choices, but he said once in his book, he lost a lot of money by trying to fix a sprinkler at his house, by just trying to prove to his wife he could do it. So instead of hiring somebody to do it, he missed appointments and missed out on work where he could have made more money by just trying to prove it that he could fix it. So simple things like that. Like, it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to not be okay, but just go ask for help. You're not alone. You don't need to suffer in silence. There's people just like you. Let's band together. So
Yeah, it's powerful stuff. Wow. Well, thank you very much for being here. I totally appreciate it.
yeah, no, it was a good conversation. That was a fun course, and you know what? I didn't have as much confidence to do videos, and then Eric just got me doing videos, and it's just you got to do it, and it's just like, you know what? In recovery, you're gonna have missteps. It's not about perfection. It's about just doing the work, right? Don't be afraid to do the work. You do the work, and you stay consistent. You're gonna get better, right?
Yeah, I'm so glad we had this conversation because I didn't realize how aligned we were on so many things.
I promise I did thank him for being with me on this day and having such an interesting discussion about both his journey and where he's at. So I will have Justin's contact info in the show notes. If you want to reach out to him, learn more about his program, anything like that. He's just very relatable, and I've enjoyed getting to know him a little more on this show. So, all right, beautiful people, we can't forget our positive quote, which it feels like I've been doing a lot of lately since I've been out of our normal routine. I enjoyed the emphasis that Justin put on acceptance. So that's going to be the theme of our quote today. And no surprise why I loved it. It's from J.K. Rowling. Understanding is the first step to acceptance, and only with acceptance can there be recovery. Have a great day, beautiful people.